Enjoy the lesson and pay attention. I'll be keeping an eye on you.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Are you ready to level up your skills? Today we're diving headfirst into the world of TIBCO BusinessWorks with a super practical and insightful lesson perfect for your next project. In our last episode, we saw how to transform our application into a real server, exposing REST services and learning how to test them professionally with Postman. If you missed it, go check it out. Today, we're taking a step forward to discover two fundamental elements for managing REST services: path parameters and query parameters. Ready to unlock the next level? Let's get started. Think of a service URL like a file path, similar to the folders on your computer. Each part of the address takes you to a more specific level. Path parameters are used precisely to identify a single resource, a specific file within that path. While in the last lesson, our getPerson service returned the entire list of people from the database, by adding a path parameter, we can target a single, specific person. This parameter is dynamic and allows us to request information for just one person, for example, by using their ID. We will implement our logics so that if the parameter is all, the service will return the full list. Otherwise, it will expect a number that corresponds to the ID of the person we want to retrieve. This will be a crucial step to make our services more flexible and powerful. This might seem complex, but I promise it's easier to do than to say. The first thing we need to do is go into our services component, which you can easily access from the process service. On the endpoint, we'll add a placeholder string like ID enclosed in curly braces to the resource path. Now, before we move on, I want you to see what has changed in our services contract, the well-known Swagger, which is automatically generated. Let's copy it and paste it into a Swagger editor. You'll immediately see that ID in curly braces has been added here as well, for both the get and post methods. Just a heads up, the addition for post is purely for demonstration purposes because we don't actually need it for this method. The correct way is to create another service with another endpoint. If we open the get details, we'll notice that now the ID parameter has his own section and he is mandatory. Let's go back to our REST process. In the input, in addition to the request body, we now also find the ID parameter. To make things easier for you, I've already set up an integration process that takes an integer ID as input and retrieves the person from the database associated with that ID, just as you learned in our lessons on connecting to a database. Now, we'll implement the actual logic in the operation process. This process also needs to take a string as input, for which I've already created an XSD element. Here, we pass the path parameter as input. Using conditional transitions, we'll make sure that if the input string equals all, we'll call the process that retrieves the entire list of people. Otherwise, we'll retrieve the person with the specified ID. It's crucial here to remember to convert the input type from a string to an integer, but we can do automatically with one click with fixed type casting error. Keep in mind that if the input string isn't all and contains non-numeric characters, the process will fail. As a small exercise, I encourage you to handle all the possible error cases. Since both processes return the same type of output, in the end mapping, we'll use whenCondition and the exist function provided by XSLT to map the output of whichever process was executed. Alright, it's time to test. We'll launch the debugger by flagging our main REST process. You'll see that all the other processes we're calling get flagged automatically. As we know with the command L endpoints, we know all the service that our application expose. Let's copy our endpoint and pass on Postman to try it. If we enter the parameter all and send request, the response is the complete list of all the people. It works great. Now let's try entering an integer, for example 10, and the service returns the information for a certain Isabella Anderson. See, it all works flawlessly. On TIBCO, you can also take a look to see which execution flow transition was taken. Before we go, I have a small favor to ask that helps me continue creating these videos. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Next, let's move on to another fundamental element: query parameters. Like path parameters, they are also part of the URL and help us pass additional information to our web service. But unlike path parameters, they are not integrated into the URL's structure. Instead, they appear after a question mark. For example, we might want to filter people by their first name, last name, date of birth, or any other field. This way, we can apply one or more filters at the same time. By convention, if we use more than one filter, we'll join them with an ampersand. This way, the service will retrieve from the database only the person who matches all the criteria, such as both first name and last name. To add the query parameters, let's go back to the service component. These parameters are specific to a single operation, so we'll only add them to the get operation. From the green icon, we'll add a query parameter. From the red one, we could add header parameters, which is another way to provide additional data. We'll add to query parameters first name and last name. For our example, the string type is fine for them, and they should not be repetitive and not mandatory. Looking at the input of the get operation, you'll see that in addition to the ID, we now also have first name and last name, but unlike the ID, these are optional because we declared not required. Of course, these parameters are not present on the post operation. As an exercise, you can also add the date of birth and tax code as query parameters. Now, the next step is to pass this information to our operation process. To do that, we need to modify the XSD schema associated with the start process to add to new fields, first name and last name. This will allow us to pass this information as an input. Right now, our getPerson query is set up to retrieve all people, but we want it to be more flexible. Let's select the Override SQL statement option, which allows the process to receive the query as an input. The input for this process will be a string that actually is the query that will be built automatically in the parent process. So, if no filters are present, the query will be simple. But if at least one parameter is present, we'll need to add a where clause. We'll generate this logic in the operation process, but only if the path parameter is all. We'll rely on a mapper, associating it with a repetitive string field that will hold any potential query filters. For the first name, we'll use a when otherwise condition. If the name is present, we'll build the query filter with an equality check, making sure to use the correct quotes. Otherwise, we'll insert an empty string. Then we'll duplicate the same logic for the last name. Now, our getInput expects the complete query as input, so let's build it. First, we need to figure out if we need a where clause. All the strings coming from the mapper are our filters, but we need to insert the AND operator between them. An XSLT variable helps us do this. Concat sequence format function is perfect for our needs. It concatenates repetitive elements into a single string, and it lets us provide a separator to insert between each element. For input, we'll put in the repetitive string element coming from mapper. As the separator, we'll use AND with a space before and after it. And we'll set the third flag to true so it ignores any null or empty elements. Now, let's create another variable where we'll define the condition for the where clause. If the string with the ends exists, we'll concat the word where to the end variable, otherwise, we'll use an empty string. Finally, we can write our final select query by concatenating the where clause, which will only be populated if at least one query parameter is present. It's time for the ultimate test. Let's launch the debugger. From Postman, let's send a request without any query parameters. The service returns the entire list of people. It works. Now let's add first name with the value Jane, and you'll see we get two occurrences for Smith and Jefferson. Now let's try with only the last name for Miller, and we get two occurrences back, Olivia and Fiona Miller. And now for the true test, let's try adding first name with the value Olivia as well. The service returns a single occurrence, exactly as we expected. In the TIBCO debugger, we can see the queries that was dynamically built, complete with the where clause just if necessary. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. For any questions, feel free to write them in the comments. See you next time!